Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by
DHG is a full-service accounting firm serving Memphis and the Mid-South region for more than 60 years, combining community involvement with the technical resources of a national firm. For more information, visit dhgllp.com.
The WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Jason Manuel on the new Germantown school system tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I'm joined tonight by Jason Manuel, superintendent of the Germantown Municipal School District. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. We joke that it's a new system, but it's actually 1 year, and we'll kind of get into looking back over that first year and so on. But I suppose the current news for Germantown and for other school systems in the suburban area is construction and the prospect of construction. You recently held, I believe, some public hearings to begin talking about. Tell us what is on deck and what's being contemplated.
Well, one of the challenges that we had as a new district that I think some of the other municipalities did not have was 3 of our schools that were inside the city of Germantown limits actually stay with Shelby County Schools. And so right off the bat, year one, we had a large influx of students from Germantown Elementary, Germantown Middle, and Germantown High School. And so that's created some capacity issues. We've also seen a large number of students returning from private schools or from home schools. And so we have increased enrollment. It's a good problem to have, but it is a challenge that we have to deal with. And so our town hall meetings were really reaching out to our stakeholders, the parents, the teachers, the administrators, to say, how can we solve this challenge without overspending and being fiscally responsible? How can we deal with our capacity issues?
And what, if you correct me if I'm wrong, you're looking at an estimated $7 million to do an addition to Riverdale Elementary, is that correct?
Those are preliminary estimates that we have, so it could be anywhere from $7 to $10 million.
Okay.
Like I said, they haven't done site analysis yet, whether they're looking at the ground and how much work they have to do, concrete work, do they have to sink pylons?
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely, that's good to clarify. And then potentially a new elementary school. There are 3 Germantown elementary schools, I believe, is that correct?
Yes, so we have Dogwood, which is a true elementary school, K through 5, Farmington, which is K through 5, and Riverdale Elementary, which is K through 8.
Okay.
So it's a hybrid school.
And the cost on the other, just so we kind of get ballpark costs on the new elementary school.
Not including cost of land, is $15 million.
Okay, so quite a bit less than the $100 million that they're looking at in Collierville.
Yes, most definitely.
But I mean, so far, I mean, it's expensive. Obviously, it's a lot of money.
Yes.
And what has been the reception from political leaders who are going to fund it and the people in Germantown? What kind of reception have you had so far?
Well, I think everyone understands the need. So really the first objective for these town hall meetings was to say, is there a need? I think anytime you want to go out and talk about millions of dollars, we want to make sure that we've left no stone unturned, and look at, are there other options, whether we're talking about additions onto our existing facilities, can we do upgrades at those facilities, are there other things that we could do besides building? So right now it's just, I think everyone is on board and know the consensus of the need. How we solve it is a different issue. I think talking to the mayor and aldermen, they understand our need, and they understand that it's going to require some funding. But how we do that and at what pace and at what timeline, that's what we're still working on, the logistics. And
just so, I'll turn to Bill here in a second, but again, there are the 3 elementary schools, the 2 middle schools, Houston and...
Like I said, so Riverdale's a K through 8. So we have 5 schools, 1 high school, 1 true middle school, and 3 that have elementary, one of those having K through 8.
And that's about 5,500 students, give or take?
5,700 students in the district.
Okay, and are you at a point of doing portables and that kind of thing at any of the schools?
Yes, currently Riverdale has 22 portables.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it's easy to look at that and say, oh, we have a capacity issue already at Riverdale. Farmington has 4 portables at that school. Dogwood is just on the verge of having portables at that school too.
Okay, Bill.
And the space situation in your school district is a bit different than what we've seen in the other 2 school systems that are contemplating building, because you do have this unique arrangement where you have the three Gs within Germantown who are part of Shelby County Schools, And the first thing that came up in the discussion you all had about this when you said we're going to explore this was, okay, it'd be nice to have Germantown Elementary School,
Correct.
but that's off the table at least for the next few years.
Several years. And we've had several meetings. Our school board has had meetings. Our mayor and aldermen have had meetings with representatives from Shelby County Schools. And at this time, they are not willing to relinquish those schools to us. And for good reason. They have students who are in those facilities. The schools are successful schools with high quality programs. And so their motivation to deal with our capacity issues aren't a priority for them.
So take me through the timetable for this, which you've done before, but basically this is a conversation over this summer, and nothing's obviously going to be able to be done for 2 or 3 school years.
Yes.
Here.
So we know that we're dealing with current capacity issues, but we also see growth coming too. And by the time we could build an extra facility at Riverdale or build an elementary school, we are looking at a 2 to 3 year period. The facility, the extra addition at Riverdale would actually be quicker. That could be, the actual construction be completed in about 9 months because we do own the property, so you're not dealing with negotiations for the land itself.
Yeah. And you would want to, if it's a new elementary school, you want to, I think, start turning dirt on that sometime in October? Or
I will say as soon as possible.
Okay.
October may be quick to turn dirt. What we may be looking at in October is the land option being concluded. If that's the route that we finally agree on, that yes, we're going to have an elementary school, then we would want to identify the property, do a site analysis to make sure it can structurally support an elementary school. And you're looking at power lines, you're looking at waterways, you're looking at all the.
Let's bring up. We have a map of the existing schools, and let's put that up so people can kind of see what we're talking about. And first is the municipal school district, the schools that you control there that we just talked about. Those, and then let's go ahead and put up the 3 Gs, as Bill called them, the ones that are controlled by Shelby County Schools.
And this is Germantown Elementary, Germantown Middle, and Germantown High School.
In red there in the left-hand corner. What kind of locations are you talking about for the new school?
And I think for us, we're looking at 2 different issues. We're looking at middle school capacity issues and elementary school capacity issues.
Yeah.
Right now, looking at our optimal capacity, we're over 250 students over our optimal capacity at elementary school, and we see growth coming at there. I think the objective for us, looking at that map, is south of Poplar, we want to have a community school, an elementary school.
Yeah, that seemed to be the gap. I mean, just from visually.
Yes, visually you can see all the schools are north of Poplar, and so we would want a school south of Poplar. And so we're looking at something that's probably on 15 plus acres, and there are very few properties that are 15 plus acres south of Poplar. So there's probably 3 or 4 potential sites that we're looking at and have identified.
What happens with attendance zones?
We would have to change attendance zones. And I think for us, depending on where the school was built, it would change the way we do attendance zones.
So, and you talked at the beginning, more kids coming in. I mean, again, we're talking about the first year, and we've had most of the other superintendents on from the new schools, and it's interesting to hear how you all. I mean, there was so much talk and there was such a fight, but at the end of the day, you, like the other superintendents, was charged with getting these schools open.
Yes.
Being on budget, and all of it kind of not a leap of faith almost, because you didn't have any history in terms of being an independent school district. You end up with more kids than you expected? Is that correct?
Yes, many more. Yes.
How did that happen? Did they come from the 3G schools, or were they just?
I think it's a combination. Okay. So we saw students who are coming from Germantown Elementary and Germantown Middle, and mainly the freshman class at Germantown High, who would have gone to the freshman class at Germantown High School. At Houston High School, we had an additional 150 students who are Germantown residents come to Houston High School that compared to previous years had not been there. So it's a large group of students. And then we also see private and homeschool students coming.
And so what are the rules about that for people who don't live in Germantown? So if I'm in Germantown and I have a child of middle school age, I have the right to send them to?
So for us, we have school zones.
Okay.
And so we have a map that they can actually go on our website and they can put in an address and see which school they're zoned to.
So you might be zoned to Germantown Middle School or Germantown High School?
Well, actually not. Now, Germantown Middle, Germantown High School, and Germantown Elementary are not part of our district. So residents of Germantown for us are zoned to our 5 schools in the Germantown Municipal School
Okay.
District. So for us, they're going to be either zoned Riverdale or Houston Middle School.
So if I live, I mean, I apologize to do this.
No, that's
but
okay.
If I live next door to Germantown Middle School, but
yes.
I can still choose to send my child to one of your municipal schools.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
you
I
are
have the right as a resident there to say, no, you got to make space for my kid.
Yes, you are a
Okay.
Germantown resident.
Okay.
You belong in our schools.
Okay. And then, and part of this too, and we talked about some budget issues that you all just went through a first year budget, and you had, with those more kids comes more money. Is that
Yes,
right?
so there's revenue.
The state money particularly flows through with the child.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about let's kind of shift into that. Well, let me, before we get into that, let's talk about funding for construction.
Sure.
There's really only one way, which, right, is tax money, is property tax money.
Actually, the city can pay for it out of their general fund money, and there are different sources.
Okay.
Right now, the county commission actually puts out bonds for capital improvements.
Okay.
And it's a split based on the average daily attendance. And so the municipalities and Shelby County Schools gets a slice of that funding. So that is one potential source of money. And based on historical patterns, Germantown Municipal Schools would be looking at $1.5 to $2 million in capital improvement money regularly based on those bonds from the county commission.
Okay.
The other potential source of funding for building our schools would be the city of Germantown itself. They can pay for those schools and pay for that bond through their own general fund, or there could be tax increases to pay for that.
And I mean, what have you learned looking, for instance, at Collierville? Collierville's got, I mean, a much bigger project, a lot more money, but there's a lot, I suppose you watch and you worked with John Atkin for a long time, and I know
Yes.
you all taught all the superintendents, although you're not formally related, but you all talk quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what have you learned from his experience so far in terms of pitching and getting people on board?
I think for us, that's one of the reasons that we had the town hall meetings. We wanted to make sure that everybody understood the need and the capacity issues that we currently have. And we have things that tie us. The state says you can only have a maximum of X number of students per grade band, and we only have X number of classrooms in our school. So it's a real easy math formula to say we have a need.
To the people who say, you know, I mean, and this goes back to the whole debate about consolidation and deconsolidation and all that stuff, but, you know, people, real simple, stereotypical thing I'm about to say, okay, about people moving to the suburbs. Some moved to the suburbs because they wanted good schools, okay, and they continue to move there because they want good schools and they believe or have the perception that the city schools weren't good or aren't good. Other people move out of the city because they want low taxes. And so the tax rate in Germantown and all these places are lower. But you can see already, you know, Collierville's having to up its tax rate. What do you say to residents of Germantown and say, hey, I don't have any kids in these schools. I moved to Germantown because of its low taxes and its great quality of life. What do you say to them if your schools are putting a burden on their tax rates?
Well, what I would say is first, Germantown's taxes aren't that much different than City of Memphis. Now that may be an issue for Lakeland that does have much lower property taxes, but for us, we've always had a higher tax rate, which is comparable to Memphis residents in the city of Germantown. So it's not a big sticker shock, oh, I moved into Germantown and we're hiking your taxes. That's not the case for us. But for us, one of the things that you want when you buy a house is you want increasing your value. You want some return when you get ready to sell your house. And one of the things, like you said, that does that is a quality education program. And we've seen that. Just in our first year, we've seen property values in the city of Germantown drastically change. And so that's raising people's property values. So they're actually making a profit by having better schools in their system, even if they don't have students in our system. And the houses are selling very, very quickly in the city of Germantown. We see lots of neighborhoods where they're turning over within 1 or 2 days with new families that are coming to our district. And once again, that's a concern for us growing, but it is a good thing for the Germantown residents.
Okay, Bill.
Is the half-cent sales tax hike that all of the municipal school districts were required to do as a minimum of funding, is that part of the equation for paying on capital?
that funds, we received $2.1 million this past year from the city of Germantown, and that goes into our general fund. So that's a separate source of funding.
That's operating.
That's paying for textbooks, you know, that's our regular operations.
Right. So as Eric mentioned, one school year under the belt here, and as we've talked before here on the show, when you started, when each of the 6 superintendents started, you guys had a phone, a desk, a computer,
Yes.
and that was it. You built this from
the ground up.
The ground up. So now you've got it running. What are the things that you're going to be looking forward to, the things that you want to develop over time for Germantown Municipal School District?
I think one of the exciting things for us in a municipal school system, and I am a product of Shelby County Schools, loved Shelby County Schools, worked there for 20 years. But for us, it was a bigger system. And so if we're looking at just the schools in Germantown, we have $23 million in deferred maintenance on our facilities. And so that's something that over time, they're just spreading the wealth. That wasn't coming back to the city of Germantown. And just year 1 in our district, for example, we paved the parking lot outside of Houston Middle School. There's a hardwood basketball floor going in the gym there because we had the hard tile and there would be injuries with students falling on that floor. We are replacing the windows at Farmington Elementary School that haven't been replaced for 30 years, and they're brittle and they break and they're translucent. You can't actually see through the windows. So huge changes in facilities for us at our schools. Mm-hmm. But also programmatically, we can do things just for Germantown schools. So in year 1, we added Chinese to our elementary schools. We've added a string and orchestra program at the elementary school level and at Riverdale Middle School that goes all the way through high school. We added a STEM program at Riverdale. We added STEM classes at the high school. We added a television studio at Houston High School that's fully functioning. So that's just year 1. So for us instructionally, there are exciting things that we're doing. We've added RTI teachers. So when a student is struggling, we are pulling to small groups with 5, 6 students, and they're getting really small group instruction to help them deal with their skills deficits. Mm-hmm. So those are the exciting things for us, is that we can tailor our academic programs and also give our facilities the attention that they haven't had for many years.
Right, because intervention is part of what everybody's doing now.
It's the new state model.
Mm-hmm. In terms of blended learning, the technology mm-hmm. that is so much a part of life of students now, are you able to do everything that you want to do with that?
Yes, actually we've had a great first year. We started out with $0 in reserve, and that was one of our challenges. And at the end of this first year, we're going to have $3 to $4 million in our reserve accounts. And that's with adding all of those programs and doing big capital improvements in our facilities. But we've also started a one-to-one initiative where students are moving away from the old textbook world to having a device like a laptop or an iPad. And so in this next school year, we're starting at the middle and high school level, and we're going to start with pilot classes where the students, instead of having textbooks in their classes, they're only going to have that device that's going to have online textbooks, online resources. But it's a change in teaching. It's not just substitution. They're going to be able to create things with those devices. Then 4 years from now, every student in grades 6 through 12 will have a one-to-one device. That's what they'll use for instruction instead of old textbooks. And we've already got that budgeted.
So will textbooks eventually be replaced here? And what kind of line item are textbooks in your budget?
It was about $200,000 for textbooks, and so mm-hmm. there's some substitution there. But for us, the exciting part is it's not just substitution. It's not just looking at a book online. It's the programs the students can create. The actual product in the classroom is vastly different.
Interactive.
It's interactive. Mm-hmm. And I can get rid of paper and pencil. I can do things that are going to drop boxes with teachers. I can throw it up on an Apple TV so that they can see it there. I can see several students' computer screens at once during the class period and select different ones and alternate between them. It's an exciting time for education.
And the recent, I think, budget, help me understand what I'm looking at here, $700,000 for the initiative to put technology in the hands of every student.
Yes.
Is that the pilot program? So
well, that fully funds our one-to-one initiative. But
okay.
when we were creating our budget, we are having increases in revenue. It's like getting a house. Once I get a car note, that car note's always going to be there. Once I get a house note, that house note's already going to be there. I can't spend that money on other things.
Right, sure.
So for us, we essentially pigeonholed that money and said, we need that $700,000 so that we can have the one-to-one initiative. So really, we could start tomorrow with that one-to-one initiative, buying devices for all students, but we want to start with pilot programs to roll it out. So that money is actually going to be going into the reserve, adding to that $3 to $4 million. But in year 4, that's the amount of money it's going to cost for that initiative.
Okay, and on the technology thing, and we're talking with some of the other superintendents about it, and you know, you hear people very excited about the technology, but also a little nervous about the idea that you've got a high school full of teenagers, and I have teenagers, with a bunch of devices in front of them, and how you manage that, how you keep them from playing games or checking Facebook, or I guess the kids don't do Facebook anymore, but Twitter or whatever they're doing.
Instagram,
so there are all these opportunities. And there are all these problems, you know, or these potential problems. How you used to be a teacher or principal? I mean, how do you manage all that?
I think it's naive. I think it's naive for us to think that the problems don't already exist in school, because every student can pull the phone out of their pocket and they've instantly got all of those things that you're talking about. Whether they're looking in their lap down here, they've already got it. So for us, that's why we're starting with this pilot program. The first thing we had to do was improve our infrastructure. So we're looking at the wireless ports, we're looking at how they log on, we're looking at the bandwidth that's required for this program, and also the types of filters and programs that we're doing. One of the things in that cost are increased personnel. So we're talking about individuals who are monitoring the system and looking at what our students are doing.
A certain teenager close to me who finds it really fun to try to get around his school's firewall, and you know, that it becomes a game, but I guess maybe that's also a challenge. Let's go back to budgets for a second, and we have probably 5 minutes left here. Some of the other increases, again, is you had more students, more revenue than you thought. It's about $2.7 million, I think, in increased budget, but that you are paying for, right?
Correct.
Okay. So some of the other things were funding for teachers who have advanced degrees. Is that just a bump in salary when you've got masters or beyond?
So actually, with our teachers historically in Shelby County Schools, a teacher who got paid at a bachelor's was paid at one level, and a teacher who had a master's or advanced degree got paid more than that teacher. With the first year of our district in Shelby County Schools, they had removed for new teachers that increased pay. So for us, we added that back just so we can help recruit. So it's $3,000 for teachers who have a master's. If you have beyond a master's, then it's a $5,000 stipend each year above that base pay schedule.
And does that get into the whole thing of attracting and retaining talent? I mean, we've talked to the other superintendents about it, from Chris Barbick in the ASD to you've got independent charter schools, Germantown. You all are in this really competitive, almost business-like environment to attract and retain talent. Is that part of where that comes from?
Most definitely. We saw several teachers this year that chose to go to other systems because we didn't have those advanced degrees. So for us to add that back in, it was important.
Right. Is it okay? It's interesting. Another thing here, $440,000 to lower the student-teacher ratios. What are your student-teacher ratios, give or take? It probably varies a little bit.
It's grade band. So you have a K to 3 grade band. And so the state sets a maximum of 1 to 25 ratio. So we're sitting right at that ratio in our elementary schools only because we don't have the space to put new teachers that we could hire. At the grade band of 4 through 8, you're looking at a 1 to 25 or 1 to 30 ratio, 1 to 28 ratio, excuse me.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing is changing the start times, which will cost money, and I didn't understand why. I'm not challenging you on that, but I was just curious, why does that? Why change the start times, and why does it cost money? I was curious.
So we pay for a bus.
Okay.
And whether you use it once or use it twice or use it 3 times during the day, you're still paying X amount for a bus.
Okay.
So for us, right now, we are using our buses 3 times during the day. If we're changing start times, we're going to 2 start times. And then that would require more buses. So one bus that's currently serving 3 different schools.
But why change the start time?
Well, we had a big push from parents just for healthy start times for students. We have 2 schools that start at 7 o'clock, and so for those students, they're waking up at 5:30. It's a challenge, and their rhythms for their natural body, their circadian rhythms, are to sleep later than 7 o'clock for high school students.
My house would vote for a noon start time on school, and I think they'd really, really thrive on that. I don't know that the teachers or parents or staff would.
So for us, we saw a lot of parents that was an important issue for them. So we agreed to put that money aside and then look at changing the start time.
Just a couple minutes left, Bill.
Let's talk about looking ahead, because the thing that strikes me about you and the other superintendents is, while we're in this year, you guys are already looking 2 or 3 years down the road at least.
Yes.
It seems like. So you all had shared services going into this first school year. Is there a contemplation, there certainly seems to be discussion, that as things shake out, that you all will kind of do things that suit each of you better once you see how that works?
I think that's a financial decision that we look at, and also a functionality decision for shared services. It worked in lots of different departments and saved the groups money, because you can have one individual that's serving several different groups. So I think that's a case-by-case basis based on which shared service we're talking about.
And based on growth or the number of
Yes.
students you have and what you have to do for those students.
And can those individuals still serve all of the municipalities as we all grow?
Right.
And your outsourcing cafeteria, is that was that shared and now you're outsourcing?
That's one of those things that we're looking at. We had a huge cafeteria loss for our district this past year, just because of the change in nutrition standards and what we saw with Shelby County Schools. We just don't have students who are buying lunches in our district, and we have a very small proportion of students who are free and reduced, so we don't get that federal reimbursement. So for us, cafeterias are a challenge.
And the BEAB funding lawsuit, Chattanooga's in, the Shelby County Schools are in. I mean, are you all, is there any contemplation that Germantown would jump in on that lawsuit?
No,
not enough time to really talk that through. And then the changes to standardized testing, I'm going to give you like 15 seconds to talk about that. What happened and the confusion about how the tests were reported? Did you get a lot of feedback from parents and so on?
It's really how they did the quick scores and how they came up with the score. So if you're getting an 88 percentile, what does that equate to? Is that basic, below basic, proficient, and advanced? And so the levels changed, and there was some confusion, but it was cleared up by the state.
It was cleared up by the state. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Bill, for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Good night.
DHG is a full-service accounting firm serving Memphis and the Mid-South region for more than 60 years, combining community involvement with the technical resources of a national firm. For more information, visit dhgllp.com.